think a lot about what I like to call meme astrology, or is otherwise referred to as pop astrology, right? Popular astrology. And this consists of majority of what is referred to as sun sign astrology. And there's nothing wrong with sun sign astrology if you are a person that understands astrology and all of the various aspects and components to astrology and the various types of astrology that exist, and what you can do with it and what it can be used for. I'm not going to get into all that. I'm not going to get into the specifics about the different types, because that's not what this is about. It's not about telling people what to do, but there is an issue that I have noticed as a person that has been an avid student of astrology for some time now and has begun my professional astrology career. That a lot of people just don't get and understand astrology. Like, I've been reading astrology since I was a kid. Like the little scrolls that they used to have. There was these scrolls that they used to have in the pharmacy when I was a kid, and you'd roll them out, and they'd have each horoscope for each sign coming down. And then from that to the the horoscopes in the newspaper. Like, this is the sort of stuff that is translated into nowadays this meme astrology or this pop astrology. But as I grew older, I began to read more in-depth astrological commentary and essays and blogs, papers, theories. I got into it. Like, I actually got into it. So I studied it. And it's just the same as someone could tell you about a basic function of something in psychology, such as like the functions of the ego or the id. But if they're not a psychologist and they do not study psychology, they don't know the full depth of what is being spoken about. And as much as people would like to say that astrology is not a science, it most definitely is a science. It's one of the original sciences. It is a sacred science, and it has existed for thousands and thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years. The majority of all, if not all, religions stem from astrological practice. And encoded in sacred text is astrological knowledge. A lot of people do not know this. Some people do know this, but they don't know to the extent, nor even when they're reading it, do they understand what they're reading, or are they able to decode it? They just know that it exists in the books, but they don't actually understand what these books are saying, as much as people would actually like to act like they do. And this is fairly evident based on the world that we live in. It's fairly evident based on, when we look around us and we see the way relationships happen between people and interactions happen between different people of different types, should I say. Because if one were to understand astrology, a lot of conflict would have been avoided, or rather, it would have been dealt with in a way that sees equal growth and opportunity. Because there are always going to be conflicts in life. You cannot avoid all conflicts. Some conflicts are just going to happen. That is what life is. But the issue with the pop astrology is such that astrology is very, very popular. People like to downplay it. It's ingrained into our epigenetics. It's ingrained into the human DNA. We have been studying and practicing astrology for so long that it is part of our consciousness, part of our collective consciousness. It is part of what connects us to the cosmos. It is our roadmap to our soul's journey here on life. And a lot of people know this innately, even if they don't understand the depths and the intricacies that an astrological practice can show you about life. The issue that I have, that I do also feel that many other professional astrologers or students, adepts of astrology have, is that with this sort of pop astrology, I'm not gonna knock it. Before I say this, I don't want to knock it, because thanks to this, there is a resurgence of astrology, of astrological thought coming back into the consciousness. So you have to give credit where credit is due. Astrology never went away. People like me have always been into it, but in the mainstream, in the public sphere, and what is popular in society, no, it was not really, hasn't been really a big thing. Probably since the 60s, 70s, had a blip period in the late 80s, early 90s, but not too big. But now it's becoming a worldwide phenomenon. And of course, you have other countries where it was still very popular in society, like places like India, for instance. Now in America, now with the advent of social media and the celebrity culture that America is known for, it has become pervasive across the world in terms of the celebrity culture in social media, these influencers. So we now have this new era of pop astrology with this new era of social media influencers, talking heads. We're talking about astrology. That's great, because, a lot of people can gain wisdom from astrology, and, who doesn't like hearing about themselves, right? That's what astrologers always say. But the issue that I think is there is a level of narcissism that has existed in this realm of social media since its inception. If we really look at the origin, and not maybe, pretty much since its inception. If we look at the origins of one of the biggest players in the game, Facebook, right? It started out as, I don't remember if it was called this, like Hot or Not. I don't know if Hot or Not was a different one, but it was similar to the original Facebook, and it was like basically you're up or down voting on other people. And it was actually very sexist. It was men originally voting on women only, whether or not they would want to sleep with these women or not. That was the sole purpose of what it originated as. So this level of objectivity and narcissism has been there since the inception. And so what we have is we have a lot of influencers. As social media has grown over time, influencers became more important. And the type of people that became influencers based on the American model of celebrityism, celebrity worship, aesthetic worship. And it was really more so about who's pretty. And so the prettier you are, the more captivating your image is, the more likes and views and comments, et cetera, that you get, the more followers you have. So while you may have two people of equal astrological understanding and knowledge, and one might be what is thought of as more classically model-esque than the other, 9 times out of 10, the classically model-esque person will get the views and get the shares and the comments and the likes, etc., get the followers. From that, because of the viral nature of social media, their content is then spread and shared. And when it's coming to something that is as dense and as large and as also specific at times as astrology can be, that is where we have an issue. Because you have people that don't really know what they're talking about things that they're not fully informed on, and then you have other people copying and parodying them and then sharing that information. And this happens all across the board, not just in the field of astrology. I see this in lots of realms. The main issue that these influencers brought to it is that they approached astrology from a very mundane, basic kind of matchmaker, love and relationships aspect. And I'm not gonna say that that is not a big part of astrology, because it is. Our love and our relationships is a big part of our lives here as human beings. We've adapted into a society where, for the most part, we pair off with a partner and we choose to live our lives out with them and create families, etc., etc. So partnership is a big part of it. However, astrology is not about the other person. It's not about who seems compatible with you based on what you want. It's about understanding yourself and your soul, and it's about soul growth, and it's about gnosis. It's about coming to the light. It's also about measuring, right, the movements of and placements of the stars and the aspects and transits that happen against your own specific natal chart, who you are as a person on any given day and time, so you can understand how to navigate throughout this realm. It's not like, oh, I'm a Leo, so I act this way, boom, and that's it. That's ridiculous. Nobody is one way all the time. And it's kind of just silly and stupid that people share these memes, and at the same time, they'll listen to people who will say that astrology is a pseudoscience or it's not a science, but they're not even listening to astrologers when they're talking about the information they're talking about. You're talking about actors and models who are repeating lines. There's no difference between a person that acts like the fucking doctor on the television versus a real scientist working in a lab. Anyway, I don't want to get too passionate about it. Y'all get how I feel. That's just some thoughts. Use astrology as a roadmap for your life. Use astrology as a roadmap for all of your interactions that you have and all of your movements, your comings and goings. Don't use it based to see whether or not you will like someone. Because at the end of the day, regardless of a snapshot of who a person was the moment they were born, they become a complete human being as they grow. Their soul grows, their mind grows, their heart grows, their body grows. We change and we adapt. In the end of my videos, I say, Astra inclinat sedam obligam. And that means the stars incline us, but they do not oblige us. You're not bound to it. It's like a GPS system. If you want to take a different road, you can take a different road. But it's about understanding all of the road signs so that you know that you're making the right turn instead of the wrong one. All right, peace.